On the morning of August 23, 1973, one of the most famous and bizarre incidents in the history of armed robberies took place in the Swedish capital, Stockholm. A man named Jan-Erik entered a local branch of the bank, Kreditbanken, with the intention of robbing it. Olsen was armed with a firearm, and as soon as he entered, he fired at the roof to attract everyone's attention. Then he went to the employees and customers entering the bank, and took 4 employees hostage. The crisis escalated quickly after that, and the situation became more complicated. This was no ordinary robbery. In the midst of the events, Olsen made a sudden request. He asked the police to bring in his former prison buddy, Clark Olofsson, to help him manage the operation and make the hoped-for escape. After negotiations, and in a surprising move, the authorities agreed to this request, and Olofsson was brought to the scene of the incident. With Olofsson's arrival, the dynamics of the incident changed. The hostages were held inside the bank vault with the kidnappers, and over the course of 6 days of negotiations between the police and the kidnappers, there was a strange development in the hostages' behavior. Instead of feeling fear or hatred toward their captors, they began to show sympathy for them. For example, one of the hostages, a woman named Christine in Mark, was sometimes very frightened, and one time Olsen let her out of the vault for a short time to calm her nerves. The hijackers also provided the hostages with warm clothes when the temperature inside the vault began to drop. As time passed, the hostages began to feel that the hijackers were their real protectors, and that the real threat came from the police who were planning to storm the bank by force. In fact, the hostages saw the kidnappers as the ones keeping them alive and protecting them from the intervention of the authorities, and this is what led to the emergence of what is called in psychology, Stockholm Syndrome. After days of negotiations, when the crisis was resolved and the police succeeded in ending the detention and freeing the hostages, the biggest surprise came. Instead of testifying against their captors, the hostages refused to cooperate with the authorities in providing any evidence that would incriminate them. In some cases, they even defended them, considering that they did not intentionally want to harm anyone, but were in fact trying to achieve escape without causing harm to the hostages. Stockholm Syndrome explains this strange sympathy that has arisen between hostages and their captors. It is a rare psychological condition in which victims feel sympathy for their captors instead of hatred, and even go so far as to defend them against the authorities. After the incident, the truth continued to astonish everyone and became a subject of study for psychological minds. What could possibly make a person sympathize with someone who threatens his life?